Can you feel it? From the north it comes. The tendrils of chaos spread south, tainting the lands. And with it, the warriors of chaos march. We must ready ourselves, for war is coming. Who has brought the warring tribes together? What manner of champion holds that power?
Seems odd to say that Archaon the Ever-Chosen kind of flies under the radar and has perpetually done so in many cases, but to people in the know, he is quite a strong lord now. Has been for quite some time, to be honest, but in terms of like the horse-only lords, I would definitely put him in the top echelon. Here, I'm up against Flying Tacos, Lizardmen once again. We've got Archaon leading the Swords of Chaos here. I did forget to bring Cascading Firecloak, which is a big shame, because that's kind of the main synergy. Is you cast Cascading Firecloak, you get extra melee defense and AP damage, you get a proc of Kindle Flame for these guys. They do extra damage, extra, right? But regardless, we've still got them for extra physical resistance, and they do give this Apocalyptic Charge. Yeah, map-wide, a little bit of extra speed and charge speed when enemies are nearby, so that's nice. In terms of the rest of the build here, I've got some Marauders, Marauder Great Weapons, so you know how I said you can't just spam Great Weapons and win? Well, we're going to test that. I've got 3 Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons, 4 Marauders with Great Weapons, 3 regular Marauders up front screening, some Poison Warhounds here for Flying Taco. He's got some Pterodon Riders, Pawhawk Sentinels, more Pterodon Riders over here. Quaddle, just regular Quaddle this time, and Mazda Mundi, Saurus Scar Veteran, a bunch of Red Crests. 4 or 5 Red Crests, also Skinkor Javs. I'm going to do a cheeky little charge and retreat here with my Hounds, try and draw out some units. But yeah, so definitely a clash of very powerful lords. Mazda Mundi, very appropriately holding back the Tides of Chaos, just looking ever so thick here on Slock. So, about Archaon. Yeah, basically, he's very expensive, but his stats are kind of ridiculous. 78 attack with Frenzy active, up to 99 charge, 517 damage. There's the Apocalyptic Charge now. Didn't actually benefit him at all, but there it is. the 10% physical resistance base, then of course with Guardian goes up to 25%. Also has the most HP base of any Footlord, and I mean, only Tyrion, if you consider, if he gets a Heart of Avalon proc, technically will have more. Malice, maybe, depending on Zarkan's degeneration, and if you're able to heal up, and if you do damage yourself with abilities and whatnot, but a nice net and bunker bust there. Doesn't do too much damage to too many high-value targets, actually, for me, so that's okay. I'm fine to take that. The Swords of Chaos are mostly fine. Does look like he's going to be dropping a Bombardment here, though. Nice Uranus Thunderbolt, and there's a Burning Head for me to try and clear out some of the Skinks. Actually ends up not doing all that much damage to anything but my Marauders, but that's fine. Meanwhile, in the periphery of the battle, just a bunch of melee infantry engagements. Nice Chain Lightning there to do a bunch of damage to Marauders. And Burning Head also overrunning into some of my Marauders, so that's just great. But Archaon this whole time has just been holding this center engagement. The Swords of Chaos have had it pretty rough so far. If we can even pull their unit card, it is somewhere mixed in there. They're getting terrified away by Mazda Mundi currently, but I just need them to hang around, even with only a couple of models, mostly just to give Archaon physical resistance as he fights Lord Mazda Mundi here. It's engagement happening in Ulthuan for some reason, but let's just not question that too much. Yeah, Mazda Mundi kind of charging around quite wildly into this various infantry here. Does allow me to disengage. Obviously, don't have the full HP to stand and fight thick Mazda Mundi for a full duration. I want to take advantage of that 99 charge bonus and get, you know, cycle charges in as much as possible. So we'll do that. Also going to blast a little Burning Head as well, once again, for the Kindle Flame proc on these Swords of Chaos and to do damage to the Skinks there. Nice drop rocks, though. Tepok, I believe that debuffs armor. Yes, it does. Down to 90 for the Swords of Chaos. Not a huge difference, but Great Weapons also charging in. Red Crest, decent charge. decent attack. Even then, they're still kind of below base hit chance due to the 61 melee defense of Swords of Chaos, which, you know, in sort of the Grey Weapon versus Cavalry meta as things stand right now, Swords of Chaos actually, because they have such high melee defense, and of course with Stand Your Ground and Cascading Fire Cloak, they'll consistently be in the 80s range. They can stand against a lot of great weapons, especially kind of the lower stat ones like these Red Crests, but still, the model count issue is going to be an issue. You can see that the Swords of Chaos are holding, and again, this is the important thing, to keep Archaon with his extra physical resistance. Standard die popped on them. They go up to 85. Little Kindle Flame proc, point blank fireball into the Spirit of Tepok. But so the Warriors of Chaos now, actual Chaos Warriors with great weapons, kind of blobbing into this fight, also supporting Archaon. Not really getting too many hits in there, but the drop rocks will help thin out that infantry a little bit. I'm just going to pull away, pull back up and around, see if I can get a charge. The Manticore fighting the Quaddle once again, as before. For those of you guys who watched, I'm recording this on the same day. For those of you guys who watched the Marauder Champs Great Weapons video, here comes Archaon though. Nice little, almost like a drive-by attack there. The Pterodons are going to try and screen, keep the Quaddle's janky animations pulling away there as it tries to get back up into the quote-unquote air. Lizardmen coming in also once Archaon's blocked up, so things are still very close after 5 minutes of slugging. The infantry advantage slightly in the Lizardmen's favor kind of locally, but over a broad picture, I definitely have an infantry advantage. They're just kind of scattered around here. Hound's also coming back. Swords of Chaos also coming back. Only 5 unit models, 400 HP, but of course that massive leadership means they will continue to fight and provide that Guardian buff for Archaon as he kind of flees from Mazdamundi. Let's say tactically withdraws from Mazdamundi. Quaddle also, again, engaging the Manticore up in the air with the Pawhawk Sentinel's support. That's not going to be great. Meanwhile, on the ground, the Archaon's got his support. Another fireball. Yeah, just 360 no-scope fireball, actually, into that Saurus Scarvet. That was kind of amazing. Archaon's over on this side, getting his attacks in, just locked horns with... It's locked, literally, like his tiny little horns are locked in here. The giant horns of the Stegodon. And, once again, the flying units from Flying Taco, very appropriately on point. I do feel that the Quaddle is, in my mind, now kind of Flying Taco's mascot, considering he used it very well against me in multiple games. And it is kind of like a weird flying taco, in a way. You could just imagine a tortilla wrapped around that thing and it flapping around. Like, if there's any unit in the entire game that's a flying taco, I think that is the right one. Anyway. Flying tacos aside, banishment placement there. Zlok can also follow up. You see how slow Zlok is right now because of how tired he is? That is a pretty significant issue in the late game. Even, like, turning and stuff, kind of slow. Advantage of having that Scarvet around is pretty good, though. But Archaon's still quite healthy. I've been able to manage his damage pretty well so far. He hasn't taken too much damage. This is a little bit dangerous, though. We've got to make sure this Saurus Scarvet stays screened, so I'm going to try and keep him surrounded. But Mazdamundi has a tendency to kind of just change the situation with his thick mass up on Zlok here. So they push Archaon away from the Great Weapon support. I'm going to actually just fully pull out of that blob again and just circle around. So a lot of charge, pull back, circle around with Archaon, but that's how we got to do it. In terms of value, he is definitely racking it up. Already 3,000 value, and its balance power still relatively close. My infantry advantage is starting to tell as all those kind of scattered warrior and marauder units start to collapse here. And the Great Weapon advantage again on Mazdamundi. You can see him taking consistent hits there all around from those little AP chunks. Archaon still being decently healthy enough. Swords of Chaos hanging around, keeping the Quaddle locked on the ground. Archaon just takes like one attack for him, and he'll probably shatter the Quaddle. But once again, the Pterodons and Mazdamundi, as I've said several times, screening for each other. Come on, Archaon, show that flying taco. Nope, he does not get an attack animation, in fact. But there you go. That's just how it goes sometimes. Does pop standard die. To give the Swords of Chaos just a little bit more time. There's literally 2 fighting still. They might actually die to the man, if you can call them men even. But still providing Guardian for Archaon. And yep, there it is, even popping up still. Critical in the late game. Really, I just need to finish off these Pterodons so that nothing else can stop Archaon from just cycle charging Mazdamundi. He is significantly faster, right? Mazdamundi only 50 speed base and 78 speed on Archaon is pretty fast considering his 120 armor, right? Like, I want to say Raponce is only 66 speed. You look at like a, typical Empire Lord on Chaos speed, or even I think like the armored Chaos steed for the Chaos Lord himself is 66 speed, I believe. France on a Barded Warhorse, right, 66. So that 78 speed is not quite as fast as somebody like Tyrion, but it is definitely fast enough to be very effective. And for the final time, hopefully, Archaon pulling back, wheeling around. Dorgar, full of fury, charging in here. Will he get an attack? Come on, Archaon, get a swipe. There's one issue with Horse Lords in general. It does kind of have to do with their reach and stagger, and sometimes they just tend to not do attack animations for whatever reason. I think it has maybe something to do with the reach and the hitbox or whatnot, but Archaon down to about 1,000 HP at this point, but the infantry just continuing to grind things down, and especially as the Sora Scarvet starts to lose health. Mazdamundi also down below 200, almost 100 HP. Spirit of Tepok for the final engagement, very janky against Archaon here. Lord of the End Times has certainly seen it all by now, right? You would think. So the fancy, janky dance of the Quaddle can't fool him. Oh man, did he just... Oh no, it was the rock there. I thought he literally decapitated the skink. That was going to be very impressive, but no. Oh wow, great game to Flying Taco. Ends up being super close. Archaon just absolutely hard carried though for me, for sure. 3,700 damage value, 13,000 damage dealt. A lot of that is coming from the fact that obviously, like, the Spirit of Tepok there, or sorry, the regular Quaddle did get to its healing cap, right? Mazdamundi was just dumping Apotheosis also into himself as well, so there's a lot of inflated value there, but you still have to do the damage, right? So Archaon definitely carrying pretty hard there. The Grey Weapons also largely did pretty well. A couple of them were limited, but mostly very cost effective, especially like this one Marauder, man. 945 for a Grey Open Marauder is fantastic. Yeah, the Chaos Poison Warhounds did great as well. Generally a pain for the Lizardmen to deal with. All things considered, too, Swords of Chaos did decently. I mean, almost 1,400 damage value in and of themselves, and also providing that Guardian for Archaon, which I do think the difference is about 15% HP that he had left, so I would say that without the Swords of Chaos, like if I had just replaced them with, regular Chaos Knights or more mobility or whatever, might have lost that, because Archaon wouldn't have had enough HP in the late game. Hard to say. A lot of RNG there, too. But for Flying Taco, Red Crests do quite well here. Chameleon Stalkers, not quite as well used, but he did use them quite well in general in this session, so I can't criticize too hard. Mazdamundi, Spirit of Tepok carrying most of the value here. But still overall very, very solid. But yeah, in terms of kind of horse-only lords, there are quite a few, and you do have to include some pure casters if you're going to include Archaon, because he is kind of a fighter-caster hybrid. I would definitely say the best in this class is indisputably the Fey Enchantress at the moment. I would put Archaon probably at number 2, though. Again, the amount of HP he has is very ridiculous. He's not a Mortis Engine. Fey is sort of more of a pure caster / Mortis Engine. Her resistances do make her exceptionally tanky, and of course she can stack Guardian as well, all that stuff. Also healer. For Archaon going in a very different direction, just ultra tanky in and of himself without any fancy resistances, although you can get that physical resistance a little bit. Lore of Fire, also really good Lore of Magic. He doesn't have any additional Winds of Magic abilities, so you're not going to get too many spells, but I mean, what do you really need in many situations besides like Burning Head? Cascading Fire Cloak, again, excellent synergy for his thematic and, in terms of mechanics, very good bodyguard unit. Swords of Chaos work very well in tandem with him. Yeah, we'll talk more about them probably in another upcoming episode. But you've also got some pretty good abilities here. Crown of Domination is quite a bit to pay for an ability like this, but Immune to Psychology, if you've always wanted that for your chosen, you can get it this way. Slayer of Kings also, huge buff, gives him absolutely insane weapon strength. I don't always take it just because he's already pretty expensive even with a relatively light spell kit, and if your opponent just avoids you during that uptime, you lose a pretty significant amount of value, and it does have a relatively long cooldown time. So, Crown of Domination is one that I may consider taking. I don't know. I find Terror not to be the biggest issue in the world. It would have definitely helped there, the Swords of Chaos not getting terrified away. But, I don't know. Maybe it's worth cutting one Marauder just to take this. Anyway, in terms of other kind of horse-only lords, Kemmler, again, more of a pure caster, not really the best comparison. Tyrion, in terms of stats, is, I would say, the best comparison. I mean, Tyrion's slightly higher base stats. Of course, he also gets some martial mastery to give him even more. So, with that active, he definitely has superior attack and defense. They have the same weapon strength and charge, but look at the difference in HP. Once again, 1,500 is the difference in HP. Now, granted, if you pick up Heart of Avalorn, and in a similar kit, right, they would cost actually a similar amount, which in and of itself means that you have to pay additional to bring a caster with Tyrion, right? So it's almost like he's more expensive in that way. He is faster, and if you get the Heart of Avalorn proc, right, he has more HP, ever so slightly, than good old Archie here. But I mean, the caster kind of combination in one. The fact you also can stack some physical resistances, so effectively against physical damage you will still have more HP even after Heart of Avalorn, right? Yeah, you get immune to psychology, which Tyrion does not, and can be terrified before he gets Heart of Avalorn proc. Many High Elf players will know that pain. I myself have experienced. So in general, I would say Archaon's better than Tyrion. Yeah, just in almost every way. Magic damage as well is going to be very nice. I also didn't even realize, but he has Strider too, which is insane for a Horse Lord. Charging up and down hills through woods. You know, not going to tire out any extra, not going to lose any speed or anything else. Didn't even realize it. That is actually a pretty good trait to have as a Horse Lord, and he might be the only one, actually, that has... Yeah, Tyrion does not have Strider. Rapun's pretty good, but again, just kind of a lower tier character overall. Considerably cheaper, but also not a caster. Malice, Meme Blade, Dork Blade here. His mechanic is that he dies, so, I mean, that's not ideal, and... Again, you kind of... It's Archaon plus him, plus the possible regeneration you would get from Warp Sword of Cain. Maybe, but considering, again, that his abilities, if you use them at all, is going to deal damage to himself, that kind of counteracts some of that. And Zarkan literally just dies without doing anything, so effectively it's going to be less. Warzag, an excellent caster, just nowhere near the kind of melee powerhouse, right? And that's why I would say... Archaon, he's got the best of stats, and he's also a caster, right? Then why he's probably number 2. The Fanchantress really is only higher because she's a Mortis engine and has ridiculous resistances. Lore of Life also arguably better, although these days I think more and more people are leaning towards kind of damage or buff or debuff-oriented lores. That's a discussion for another day. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this look at the Lord of the End Times. Definitely a very solid choice for Warriors of Chaos. Warriors of Chaos sometimes are flavor of the month. You know, you got like Sigvald's very popular right now. In the past, it's been Big Bird or Kolek, but don't ever forget about Archaon. You know, do so at your own peril, because he will come burn down your keep. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all that jazz. Thanks again. See you next time.